everybody, welcome back. My name is Gascley Stamus from Gearworks.com and the E2KG Network channel on YouTube, here with another out-of-the-box episode for both Rounding Off Infinity and E2KG. Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that the out-of-the-box label means that these are my initial hardware impressions of a device about 10 or 15 minutes or so after getting it out of the box. It's kind of the progression past what we used to do unboxings. So tonight we're talking about the Lenovo 500E Chromebook. It was just announced a couple of weeks ago, kind of in and around the time of MWC. This is a Chromebook that Lenovo is targeting at the education sector, looking at it being used for students, and we'll get back to that in a couple minutes. I suspect if you're watching the video, you kind of already know what a Chromebook is, but just in case you don't, it's essentially a laptop computer that runs predominantly within the browser. The operating system is essentially a container that looks very similar to the functionality that you see in Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Firefox, and in the specific case of Google's implementation, Chrome. Good use case scenario of why you would get a Chromebook versus a Windows PC is I had lunch with a friend of mine last week. That person recently bought their late elementary school, early middle school child a $300 Windows PC. The problem is that Windows is a fairly heavyweight operating system, tends to not run as well on low-end hardware. You know, and we talked about it, and I just let her know about the Chromebook category. For her use case and scenario, that would have been an instance where I would have probably gotten that person a Chromebook, particularly considering that in their classroom they're using Google Classroom and Google Docs and Google Drive, etc. For their homework. So they're kind of good laptops that really meet the needs of people who basically live on the web, use social media, web services, their browser. Don't necessarily need to do a lot of video editing or play high-end PC games or things of that nature. They are essentially more secure because they just live within the browser, and so the browser provides that security container. It's not a whole operating system with all sorts of nooks and crannies for malware to get into. They're easier to maintain because you don't have to patch individual applications or new drivers. Google pretty much does all that, and the updates just show up, and when you bring up your Chromebook, you'll look and you can see where an update has already been applied. They're easier to replace because they're tightly coupled to your Google profile, so if you drop one and it breaks and it doesn't come back up, you go to get a new one, you sign back in, it's essentially going to look the same way that your last one did. You might have a couple other things from the Chrome web store to replace. I bought my wife one last Christmas, same thing. Over the years, I've updated her laptops a couple of times, and it just wound up being easier to just put her on a Chromebook. And again, her school system that she works in is on Chromebook, so it just made sense. The nice thing about this one, the 500E, is like I said, it's targeted at classrooms, but it also comes with a stylus and has some digital inking applications. I haven't booted it up because this is an out-of-the-box episode, but I've been using digital ink for the last 18 years. I've done 2 stints in graduate school and completed 2 degrees, and both times I used a tablet PC or heavily utilized tablet devices. The first time through, I used a Windows CE Palm Top. I think mine was an NEC, and that had inking applications, and I used that to take notes in class, and then flipped it around. I actually wrote about 80% of my thesis on that device the first time through grad school, and the second time I was on an HP 2730p EliteBook. So I definitely swear by digital inking for getting through classwork. And both of those courses were heavily math-based. One was finance, and the second one was software engineering. So it's not like I used tablet PCs just because I was taking non-technical degrees. So I think they're excellent. And if you heard about the recent study where the findings were that students in classrooms through different permutations of an experiment retained information better when they hand wrote it down in digital ink versus when they typed it on a keyboard. Again, I'm a firm believer in that. So, like I said, this was announced a couple of weeks ago, quickly went on sale. It was about $309. Turns out that this one, the one that I ordered, I guess was like the first production run of the thing, so a lot of the language in me dealing with Lenovo was about how this thing was on the assembly line. That's reflected in the packing slip as well. But I will say overall, I didn't really care for the shopping experience of procuring this from Lenovo. I tried to cancel it twice. Because I couldn't get a specific shipping date. It turns out it shipped fine and got here actually a day earlier than I was originally informed. But the problem was not great communication with Lenovo. Like I said, I asked for a more specific arrival date. I didn't get that. I waited a day. I had some other things going on that I needed to get reviews done on. I tried to cancel the order. Using their website, that came back saying that the order was not canceled. Then I got a human being on the phone, tried to get them to cancel the order. They told me that it was canceled, not to worry about it, but the next thing that I got was that the thing had already shipped. So it's going to be a little nervous, going through the hardware review because I don't know, first runs of hardware. But the other thing that kind of bugged me was I made an effort to cancel it twice. I had money tied up and hung up for a couple of days. It just would have been better if I had known and understood that this was like an early production run and these things were actually being built to order. And mine was coming directly off the manufacturing line out in California. So hopefully when people actually go to buy these things in bulk, they'll be a little bit further in a more refined manufacturing process. So first things first, like I said, I have gotten this out of the box. The hardware feels really, really great. It has kind of a matte finish to it. So this material on the lid, although this is all plastic, but it has kind of a roughed feeling to it, which is great for grip if you're carrying it around either in an office or in a classroom environment. If we open the lid up here, the keyboard actually has that same kind of a matte finish. There's not a lot of travel to the keys, so I'm not particularly crazy about that. Admittedly, I was hoping that maybe they would use the ThinkPad concave keyboard type keys on this. That is not the case. So there's not a lot of travel to these. However, I also have an HP EliteBook. An HP Envy 13. Those keys also don't have a lot of travel. They're larger keys, so that's better. This is only an 11.6-inch notebook. The Envy 13 is a 13-inch, obviously. But the problem is that the Envy 13 keys are very slick, whereas these keys feel like they have a little grip to them. It actually has two cameras, so there's one there. Not sure if you can see that as well. This is what they call the world camera, and then there is the hard time getting that on my camera set up here. And then there's a camera there. Both of them have microphones integrated. This is so that when you put this in TP mode, and if you're doing Skype or a teleconference or something, you can be on this side, utilizing the webcam, and you can be seen, but you can be filming or shooting something on the other side. Maybe if you're going to do a product review, I don't know. The device lays flat, like so. Nice thing about the Stylus, because this is becoming a space that companies are tending to cheap out a little bit these days, is it does actually have a little housing here. And comes right out there. Now, this is also a heavier weight stylus. Actually, I'm using a Samsung Galaxy Tab A tablet right now, which has digital inking capability, but that uses the Samsung style S Pen. Those are very lightweight, they feel kind of flimsy pens. This is pretty thick, so I really like the feel to it. Now, the 500E Chromebook runs on an Intel Celeron N3450 CPU, so I'm hoping it will be quick enough to keep up with the digital ink and that won't be a problem. It also has 4 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of storage on board. Now, there are going to be higher spec versions of this coming out. This is the higher end model in a 3 model product line. I think it's going to be the 100E and the 300E. But within the 500E, I believe they are also going to have another SKU that comes out that will have 8 gigabytes of RAM in it for a little bit higher performance, that you'll be able to cache more memory. Touchpad feels fairly nice. You can hear the click there. It's got a fair bit of travel to it. I'm just trying to see if I have anything else that we should cover here. And I think that's it. So I'm going to be putting this to pretty heavy use. I'm actually going back and taking some courses, working on my Security Plus certification, as well as I'm also doing a discrete math course over the next few months. So this is going to get heavy use. I specifically went after this as a review unit because that scenario of those two classes create a really great set of use cases to put this through a pretty heavy-duty review, both in terms of utilizing Google to take notes. I've already taken the first couple classroom sessions and lectures, and I am taking my notes in Google Drive in the Google profile that I use for my classwork. So I'm very interested to see how this does both note-taking and using with tight integration with Google Drive. But hardware-wise, I am really particularly impressed. This does not feel like a cheap, inexpensive Chromebook. This is my third Chromebook that I've had. I had the Acer C200 series, as well as the HP Stream series of Chromebooks. This impresses me more than both of those. I guess one thing that I forgot to do was I forgot to go over the ports. So on the sides here, you have the Kensington lock port. You have a USB-C. Now this is just for peripheral connections. You also have a USB 3.0 port here, power button, and the volume rocker. You've got nothing around the back side. And on this side, you have USB-C for charging, USB 3.0, a micro SD slot, and headset slot. So I'll also probably be using these for a couple of Google Hangout sessions, trying to participate in the E2KG network podcast, gaming podcasts, and we'll see how that goes. This is the power brick charging cable that comes with it, and as you can see, as I mentioned, it is USB-C. So I think that's going to do it for this session of Out of the Box. Sorry I gave you so much up front, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of set the table stakes for anybody who wasn't clear on what a Chromebook was and wasn't clear on the applicability of digital ink in the classroom. So thanks so much for joining in. Stay tuned to gearworks.com, as well as the Rounding Off Affinity channel. I may do some additional videos with this, I may not, but I will definitely be doing written up reviews. I'll do a written version of the initial hardware impressions, but I'll also definitely do my mid-course and my final review over on the website. So thanks so much for joining in. For anybody who checks out this video archive, please keep your eyes open and then come on back for the rounding out of this review, as well as other hardware units that'll be coming through the lab here over the next few weeks. That's going to do it for me. This is Gaston Stamus from gearworks.com, the E2KG channel network. E2KG network channel. That's going to do it for me. I'm out of here.